From the echoes of home to the heartbeat of the world, Rwandans abroad are making milestones, weaving their culture to the world. Welcome to the Roots and WINGSIwacu show, yet another episode of amazing stories of Rwandan community abroad with various beautiful stories. And today I'm joined with Stéphanie Kabanyana. She's into the cultural world. She will tell us a bit about herself and tell us more about the journey that she's undergoing as a Rwandan living in Australia. Welcome, Stéphanie, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so can you tell viewers a bit about yourself, what you do, who is Stéphanie, and yeah, a bit more of yourself.
Stéphanie is a Rwandan British artist, composer and presenter who works in social ethnography and lives mainly in Australia but travels home to Rwanda as often as she can.
Yeah, social ethnography, for someone who may hear that word for the first time, would you like a little bit describe or explain a little bit better?
Sure. So social ethnography basically is studying people in a place and their culture. You can do it through different lenses. My lens is through research to explore Rwandese culture through art and to express those research findings through art exhibitions, performances and music. As I am lucky to grow up in a house that really celebrated and cherished Rwandan culture and art practice, I can see that art has a strong power in being unifying for everybody and getting a message across. And it's far more interesting to sit and experience art or participate in it than it is to go to a lecture. That's boring. So social ethnography through art and cultural practice has a huge impact in unifying a community and allowing everybody to have the same shared understanding. Mm-hmm.
You just say that you grew up in a home that celebrated the Rwandan culture. Would you give us examples of what you used to do when you were younger to stay connected to your culture and everything?
Sure. So my mum is the Rwandan one, my dad is English, and I grew up with my Rwandan mum. She was always playing music from home in Rwanda. I have beautiful memories of her brothers and sisters, my aunties and uncles around the world, recording Rwandan songs from radio onto cassette tape, because I'm old, we're back in the days of cassette, and posting them to us. And she would explain to me this song from Cécile Kayirebwa, some of those great singers. It means this, they're talking about this. And it was a wonderful time to start to connect with the understanding of our people, our culture, and who my mum is, where she grew up, and who my family is. So those types of interactions are really grounding, and whilst I very clearly have an Australian accent and have lived abroad for some time, you know, everyone's home is a paradigm. And so the second from school I would cross that gate into the house, I was in a Rwandan home. That's how my mum ran the home. And with her having studied piano, she's also an amazing artist. She was always doing things that I was fascinated by. It allowed me to ask a lot of questions. I was l'enfant pourquoi, always why? Tell me about this kitenge, what does that pattern mean? This agaseke basket, this imigongo, what are these stories? And by having these things in our home, it allowed us that shared connection of exploring and learning about culture.
Yeah. So when was your first time coming to Rwanda? You said you were born in UK,
yeah.
but you lived around in various countries. But when was your first time coming to Rwanda, and how did that feel, if you recall that?
Sure. I was very little. I could not even tell you the age. The first time I came back and I could solidly remember everything, I was about 12, and we came in, I think it was 95, to visit family, to gather, to be together. And that was a very powerful moment for me because I started to put into place all of the things that my mum had been teaching me. It's one thing to learn it in abstraction when you're in the diaspora and out in the rest of the world. It's another thing to see it live and experience it live. And also to see my mum in context. it's beautiful to see her speaking with her family, speaking her language and connecting in that way. So these things struck me at that age, and I had the great fortune of being able to see my grandmother, who is my namesake, she is the Kabanyana, before she died, as well as my godmother, which is my mum's sister, my auntie as well, before she died. So that was, I would say, a moment that changed my life, coming back here and instilled in me the importance of maintaining as strong a connection as I can.
Going back to your career in the creative industry as a social ethnographer, what pushed you to be in that industry, and how do you like it so far?
Growing up in this household with my mum and understanding that culture is also contextual and it can shift and change. There are many different interpretations sometimes, and that fascinates me, the ways that people have their own perspectives, whether that's sharing it through dance or through a song or poetry and those types of things. So I think for me, I've always been interested in the language of sharing, which is why art comes into the practice, and finding the source of the information. When you're a kid in the diaspora and you're growing up in a place like I did, where the population of Rwandans was one, my mum, you are seeking, you're always searching to find that connection. Social ethnography, I think, is just a natural progression from that, because it allows me to do that searching and also sharing at the same time.
So still on that, in your artistic work and storytelling, which you usually do, does your Rwandan heritage sometimes influence what you do?
Well, as Umunya Rwandakazi, it always influences what I do. It's impossible to divorce what I do from who I am. So it absolutely comes out, and I think as well it's a responsibility that we all have to try and share our culture and celebrate it as much as we can, no matter where we are. And art has afforded me the great privilege of an international platform in which I can do that. So it's always at the center of what I do, and at the same time, by being strong in the understanding of our culture, it allows me to engage with people from other cultures, so we can come together and celebrate each other, learn about each other. And in Australia, I've had the immense honor and privilege of growing up in a place where half the population was Indigenous, Aboriginal people, the original inhabitants of Australia who've been there for 85,000 years plus. They are very strong in culture, also extraordinarily generous. And so living side by side with people who are so strong in their culture and sharing it, it inspires you to do the same. I was always asked about my mum, our people, and doing my job allows me to continue that practice. As
now as a storyteller, or like you do it more often, how does storytelling play a role in preserving a culture, like in a context of the Rwandan culture?
Really, it's a clever way of getting across a message to absolutely everybody. Everyone grows up with stories. When you're a kid, you're told stories, you're read stories. As you start to engage with the broader planet these days, the internet and social media has really changed the access that we have to other stories around the world. Again, when you're watching TV, you're watching movies, you're watching stories, and you're finding places in which you can see yourself, which is always very important, to find where you are represented and you are connected in this planet. So storytelling becomes a mechanism. Really, it's a great tool in which we can share information, but do so in an inclusive way. Do so when everybody can feel like they're a part of it. There's no form of language or style that is ostracizing for people. And so I think that is a very key and important part of when we share culture and when we celebrate ourselves, to make sure that we do so in a way that everybody is included and can come on the journey together.
Now, as someone who has lived in various countries, what are some of the culture shifts that you have observed in the Rwandan community abroad?
In the time that I've been in various places and had the honor of working with people, especially in the RCA, the Rwandan Community Abroad Associations, I've come to see a shift towards, for example, people like me. I'm Métis. Most often when I was a kid, no one would say that I'm a Rwandan. Everyone would say I'm Mzungu, and that's it. Which was challenging for someone like me when you grow up with a Rwandan mother who tells you you're a Rwandan woman every day. So many things can be true. We are complex. There are many ways of being Rwandan around the world. And I think through my observation with all of these communities, people have started to understand that as they see the reality of what it's like to live in the diaspora. People are marrying different people, they have children who look like me, or they're coming back and forth from home and seeing how much Rwanda is progressing at lightning speed. And so that starts to shift people's attitudes of maybe being a bit wary and hesitant to being a lot more open and connecting with each other. I also think there has been less and less discrimination, if I can put it that way, around someone like me or others who aren't speaking our language. Our household was mainly a French-speaking household, as that was the mutual language of my parents. So when you start to have many factors that are different from what people have grown up with understanding is Rwandan, you have different skin, you have different hair, you don't speak the language. There has in the past been a push to say, well, you're not really Rwandan, you're now Australian, you're now where you are in the world. In more recent times, literally in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been my observation that that attitude has completely changed. And people are a lot more embracive in saying, we're all Rwandan, and there are many ways that we can be that. And there's many serious reasons why someone might not have had the opportunity to speak the language, etc. So it doesn't stop us from still being proud of being Rwandan and continuing our journey and connecting with culture.
Based on your experience about what you've gone through, as you've just told us, how can other generations who like grew up, maybe were born there or went there at a young age, how can they relate to their culture with those kind of challenges that they can face? What advice would you give them?
Always remember that you are Rwandan and you're allowed to be the Rwandan you are wherever you are. And it's really important as well, if you don't have the opportunity to live home and be home, to be a great ambassador for our country. So keep on searching and finding, and when you come up with and come across an attitude that may be challenging for you, have some grace and some patience to work with that person and understand where they're coming from as well. It's not always a negative thing, it's just different experiences and different perspectives. That's okay. It's our job to be gentle with each other and learn together and grow together. So make your inquiries, explain who you are, ask them their perspective and see if you can find a pathway where you coexist. Most often you can.
Yeah,
it's always possible.
It's always possible. Yeah. As now, let's go back to your connection to the country. Are there, like, you visit your country more often? You come to Rwanda now and then. Are there any projects that you're working with within the country?
Whenever I come home, I try to find a project that I can work with in the short term that can give back in whatever time I have in the country. It's a long way to travel from Australia, so I do try to be here for at least a few weeks because 24 hours of plane travel is a lot. So when I'm here, usually for a month or something like that, I will try and find an artistic project, a research project, And in recent times, also sport projects. I played wheelchair basketball as a kid. I was born with a spinal issue, and wheelchair basketball was part of my rehabilitation. And it's been a great joy through the power of the internet, getting to see online just the immense development in the sporting sector in Rwanda, which makes me so proud. And so I've connected with some of the wheelchair sports people here, just out of my own love of the sport and wanting to assist in any way I can. So in this trip, I worked with a group of wheelchair basketballers and people with determination, we say, also known as people with disability, in a wheelchair basketball tournament, which is so joyous to see us playing at a level that is really about to launch on an international stage. So every time I come, I try to find a way in which I can directly give back. I think that's really important, in amongst, of course, seeing my family and spending time with family.
Yeah. Still on that event that recently happened with those with disabilities and those without disabilities, what was the most touching or transformative moment that you witnessed during the game?
Well, during the game, so we had the APR 3-on-3 challenge, which is always fast and furious. 3-on-3, if you don't know about basketball, is a half court. It's just 3 players. It's really, really fast and really fun and intense. Just seeing the level of play and the skill of players was astounding, amongst a lot of joy. There's so much celebration. It's not necessarily about the competition, it's the fun of exploring just what we're capable of in all of our bodies. So the energy from the 3-on-3 challenge was electric. We were all on such a high. Then when we moved into another stadium to have an inclusive game, so a full wheelchair basketball game where we had players of all abilities, including some of the players from the APR Lions. We put them in chairs. It's also really humbling to see able-bodied players maybe suddenly not play in the way that they're accustomed to, and then be taught by the people with determination and living with disability how to play their game. That camaraderie and that connection where everybody is able is the most powerful experience that we can all have. You really feel that sense of turikum, where we are all together in that moment. So that was touching for me, to see everybody just on the same page, having fun and celebrating who they are.
Now, what does being part of such initiatives in Rwanda mean to you personally and professionally?
For me personally, experiencing disability at a young age, being a wheelchair basketballer, being a kid who couldn't run or play contact sports due to the nature of my spine, I often say, wheelchair basketball saved my spine and changed my life. It was a pivotal moment. And also experiencing the unfortunate discrimination that comes with when you're sitting in a chair, when you're not able to do things in the way that other people around you can. So here in Rwanda, seeing that there are great initiatives like the sporting sector that are very embracing of people with determination shows me that there is a great connection of making sure that our society is truly inclusive, because there is no way that any society can progress unless we bring everybody together. So with sport, it's a wonderful way to do that, but also it's not just about the competition and playing, and it's not about the permanent body you might have. Wheelchair sports, inclusive sports, are excellent for people like myself who are in a rehabilitation phase. I was due to have a spinal fusion with a metal rod put in my spine. As a teenager, that is a very intense operation to come back from. And as you keep on growing, there's a moment where they might have to recreate that operation many times. It's invasive, it's destructive. There's a high chance that if they miss something, they then permanently disable you. And so being in the wheelchair sports sector allowed me to develop the musculature to bring my spine back into alignment. So it was a moment of health as much as it was the community that comes with it, the friendships, the energy and the purpose. Here I can see there are many people with determination who at times can still be challenged by finding employment, finding purpose with what they are able to do. And so the development of the sports sector is very key in leading to economic growth and leading to jobs. I also see that we have a number of veterans. I have veterans even in my family. And when you have a body that your job relies on that changes, it can be a challenge to then shift your mindset and see what is your purpose now? How can you still do your job or give back to your community, serve your country, etc. With inclusive sports, again, it allows people to still participate and still be active in their role, regardless of how their body has changed. So I think there are many factors that lead to a strong development of the sports sector in Rwanda that can assist and even celebrate people of all bodies and abilities.
Yeah. Now back to your life abroad. You live in Australia, but despite living far from home, are there any other activities that you do to celebrate and engage with the Rwandan culture in your daily life, or are there people that you engage with out of the Rwandan community there in Australia to help you remain connected, to help you remain connected to your culture?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for putting your things on the internet, everybody, because I watch you every day and I listen every day. So it's wonderful to just get up and instead of listening to local radio, I mean, I work on radio, it's nothing against my own station, but I will listen, I will tune in, and that's the way that I connect. Speaking to my mum and you know, as she gets on as well, getting what I call the download of all of these deep stories and memories that keep on coming out. With the RCAs, the Rwandan Communities Abroad Associations, there are so many fantastic activities. The RCA in the city that I live in Melbourne, in Australia, has just started to have a basketball league. And so seeing that develop is a great joy. In other RCAs, they're developing language schools and also creating great plans for Umuganura and those types of major events across the year, or Heroes Day, Liberation Day. There are many celebrations. Of course, it's always important for us to join together in Kwibuka, and so I've been active in assisting various RCAs in Kwibuka. The biggest one in Australia has recently been the 30th anniversary, and for the first time, all of our RCAs joined together and we travelled to the capital, Canberra, and held our Kwibuka at Parliament House in Canberra. So that was an important unifier, especially in a country that is so large. Australia is huge as a landmass, but comparatively it has a tiny, tiny Rwandese population of less than 2,500 people for the whole country. So when we come together in those moments, it's really powerful. And again, it allows me opportunities to ask certain stories and hear from the elders in my community as well, who relate their perspectives and understandings on our culture.
Now, time is not on our side,
Yes.
but there is this question that I really want to ask you. When you're abroad, what do you miss most about home?
Family, 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 always.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, from the moment that I'm on that Rwandair flight, coming down through the clouds, seeing the mountains and the hills that I love, I'm already crying from that second. Every time I come, seeing that, knowing that my family is going to be on the other side of the gate. And then after we drop my luggage off, I'm a girl from Cyangugu, remember, I demand that we go and get goat brochettes, and I sit there with my goat brochettes and isombe and have that meal and have that connection with everybody. These are the things that I miss. There's a way that our people can make you smile and laugh that just doesn't exist anywhere else, and that really feeds you to the bottom of your soul. So I feel that my cup is so full every time I come home to Rwanda. And in Australia, that lasts me for some time, but I always need to come back for more.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for your time and for speaking with us and sharing with us your journey as a Rwandan living abroad, which can be sometimes very challenging, joining both cultures. But thank you very much for sharing your story to our viewers.
Murakoze cyane.
Well, culture knows no boundaries, and neither the stories that we carry. And we've seen how Stephanie navigated the challenges, and she also shared some advices to the Rwandan community abroad, both those who grew up there or those who went there for other reasons. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you for joining us on Roots and Wings Iwachu. It was a great pleasure to have you.
I look forward to seeing you again and one day moving home. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for joining us. See you on the next episode of the Roots and Wings Iwachu. My name is Olive Nete. See you next.